Mr. President, members of the board, on December 6, 2022, the board approved assignment of a lease from Source LLC for the ground lease of Hangar 161 to the National Test Pilot School. The ground lease for Hangar 161 is a 50-year lease, and it ends March 31st, 2058. National Test Pilot School is requesting to sublet to Supernaut, which is a VTOL aircraft company. It's owned by the Hyundai Motor Group, and it's really leading in the advanced air mobility mission and making huge steps towards that mission. So they'd like to occupy a portion of Hangar 161 for their office space. Staff does recommend approval of the consent to the sublease and authorization for me to execute the agreement with pending council's approval. And the reason why it's brought to the board is because NCPS has a long-term lease, and so it requires a sublet approval from the board.
Okay. Could you point to that hangar? 161.
The corner
main
one.
Hangar.
Yeah.
Okay.
The main. And isn't Boom in there at this time also?
They're in FRI, which is
the next
building
one.
next to it. Yeah.
What's the duration of this sublease?
2 years with 2 1-year lease extensions, right?
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Let me see that.
I had 2 1-year sublease options.
Oh, it's online. I don't know if it's in here, but
Okay.
pretty sure that's what I read.
I have a question then when we can.
Yeah.
If you want to do that, that's good. But it's just at the last meeting, there was a larger than 50-pound unmanned vehicle operations that was potentially going to happen. Is this related to that then? Would that be a vehicle that would use that greater than 50-pound unmanned vehicle?
Do you know if that is covered in what's article?
Oh, that's the company that sparked that. Okay. And I'll continue with my concerns about 1,000-pound vehicles that are unmanned in the airspace of Mojave. They may say that they've already had one accident here on runway 22. Joby had its bad day with this unmanned thing, and there's been a lot of others, and we need to be cautious about unmanned vehicle. It's not in a remote part of the airport, and that's my view that I've seen. So we don't want that unfortunate day like 2007 when the rocket exploded and it killed 3 people, injured 3 others, to have something like that happen again at this airport. I'm not saying not to do it, but let's just make precautions the best we can for the next step of unmanned vehicles, or whatever the proper way is, unpersoned vehicle.
Understand.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming they've got an operating corridor that they arrive and depart into. Are they typically going into the restricted space?
Do you know what their operations looks like for?
And I assume we have a NOTAM as well, and that they have a flight termination system.
So we do have basic requirements for all of our UAS operations in accordance with Part 91 as well as Section 44807. Specifically, I cannot speak to this company. We are under a binding agreement where I can't disclose information about them in this forum. However, they are required to provide provisions such as lost link procedures, similar to what happened to the crash that Chuck was referring to, where we ensure that there are measures taken that the company can either regain or retain control of the vehicle to send it to a termination point away from personnel, vehicles, or other aircraft, and as well as protect our airspace. So, for instance, if we had a vehicle operating on runway 30, it would terminate to the east of the runway in the dirt, essentially, away from all people.
That's like a loss of link.
Correct, lost link or lost
But if it
communication.
loses power and it's uncontrollable, then there's other safety mitigations.
Yeah, we redesignate flight paths to ensure that it directs away from people. And if you are
like
interested,
their operating area is obviously they're not flying over any,
Correct.
anyone.
Correct. We
For
ensure
instance,
that there's
and then
no.
they're leaving the flight pattern directly, like they go out, then return.
Correct.
in a
We do ensure
corridor.
there is no overflight of personnel, other aircraft, and then they also have height restrictions, and those are authorized through the FAA. If there's any changes to those height restrictions for any reason, they need to coordinate with the airport and coordinate with the tower to ensure that there's no either overflight or potential for them to interact with another aircraft while it's flying.
And that's the regulations for the 50 pounds or less vehicles.
It's for both.
Correct. Okay.
It's for both. We carry stringent regulations
Okay.
across all sizes of them.
Mm-hmm. Again, they're unproven in my view, and you can say they're going to go east of 30, but if you lose all communications, it's going to go to a place we don't want it to.
Correct.
I'm not being overcautious, but it's happened many times in the unmanned vehicle industry, and we don't want to, because it's usually out in the middle of nowhere, like the amateur rocket sites.
Proving grounds.
Right. Yeah, they have proving grounds for that. So
We do have some vehicles that we can't mitigate the risk, or they can't prove it to me to a point that we're comfortable with.
Mhm.
And those are recommended to go outside of the airport and test in designated spaces that
Okay.
have even lower risk of overflight. We are taking special considerations. For instance, one of our vehicles that we'll be testing on the airfield has a total duration of about 60 seconds.
Okay.
And so even if there is a potential for uncontrolled flight, it will be in a designated area. And then we've been able to look at that and through some testing, I'm trying to remember what I can say in this, evaluate that it would not be able to make it to anywhere where it would cause harm.
Right. It becomes ballistic at that point.
Yeah, so we're doing everything in our power to ensure that we're mitigating and taking, Tim's going to love this term, but acceptable levels of risk or acceptable levels of safety, and ensure that we're not introducing hazards into our airspace where not necessary.
Yeah, if I may.
Mhm.
So I think it is wise to keep the conversation going and making sure that the board is informed, the airport is informed on what kind of new risks testing unmanned vehicles presents. But I do hope that's not indicative of a reluctance or lack of acceptance of new and exciting direction that civilian flight test is coming. And if we're going to remain a civilian flight test center, we do need to keep an open mind as far as what kind of discussions we'll engage in. So yes, I think it is absolutely worthwhile to ask specifics, but like we reviewed, the new revised policy the airport has on policy or process, whatever you want to call it, the 50 pounds or heavier. But I just do hope that we continue pursuing the new and exciting
Thank you,
directions.
because I think that's very important. We're concerned, of course, we should be.
I'm not against that.
But, excuse me, Chuck.
Okay.
But also, it's very important we don't send that type of message. That's the type of businesses we want to encourage. I mean, rocket engine testing, unmanned testing, that's extremely important to our message
Mhm.
to the industry. That we support this type of stuff. And we'll figure out a way to get to yes.
Yes, like I said, if you ever have any more questions, members of the board, please feel free to see me. I'd love to talk about those a little bit more offline. Unfortunately, there are some things I cannot disclose other than assure you that we do take every precaution and we look at this from all angles. The last thing I want as well is to be out cleaning up a preventable mess is the best way I can describe it.
And that was my focus, precautions. Precautions were not taken in 2007, and 3 people were killed on this airport.
Okay. Point taken.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess we need a vote on the
Motion to approve.
Okay, there's a motion.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, unanimously passes. So we're on to item 5, reports. So
Okay. Mr. President, members of the board, some updates to some of the projects we have been working on. Taxiway Alpha Electrical Rehabilitation. We are finalizing the contract with Royal Electric. That's the contractor that's performing the work. There's been no update on the start, the actual exact start date, but we are, once we'll have that contract finalized, we will have a better perspective of when that work will start. There's been no inland port updates. I have been in contact with the gentlemen that own, or with Pioneer Partners, but they don't have any updates for it at this time. With the water main systems update, contract has been completed with the contractor Ari Shafi. It's in its mobilization phase, which is 30 days. We do have a pre-construction meeting set for Thursday, which is February 15th, which is next Thursday. Anticipated completion date is around March 25th. The water system hydraulic modeling, we've made some progress with reaching out to get the water demand information from some of our tenants. We are still working diligently to get the remaining information so we can get this project closed out. And finally, I did meet with local equity last Friday, January 26th, to review the proposed construction site. And they had a chance to talk with some of our tenants, including yourself, Mr. President, about trying to better scope what that project's going to look like.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question. Is this agenda the same agenda that's online? Okay. There was one thing about that Eastern, and there's nothing in here about hydraulic. I'm just wondering if it's the same. About hydraulic modeling, which I did read online. Does it say it here? I might be missing it. So I just wondered if it was the same or was it generated at a different point in time. That's good. We don't have to do that.
Mr. Reed, were you going to give us an update on, there's been some activity in the GA area with some roofing changes, gutters, drainage project. I don't know what's going on there, but it's exciting, whatever it is.
Yeah, we've been performing some work. Floyd has been instrumental in coming up with a hangar maintenance program, but also some improvements to address some of the drainage issues that we've been experiencing, including installing gutters on the T hangar. The hangars that the airport currently owns, and then I believe they're going to also look at the drainage issue that's over in the area of your hangar as well. So we're working with one of our with Todd Porter to see if there's a solution, if there's some work that can be done to address the hangar flooding issue.
And that's the digging that's going on down at the west end. Is that the same thing? It's behind the hangars and between them.
That is my understanding is there were two abandoned what are they called? Sewer containment septic tanks, right? That had to be removed. So we were just trying to mitigate that since they're already doing work in that area.
Gotcha.
And there's been a lot of scrap of the gutters and stuff next to hangars. Like 969 has a bunch of scrap material next to it.
Okay.
And I think we need to be a little cleaner in that environment. And then they're just randomly thrown between hangars at this time. So let's get a more non-sloppy work environment, I would suggest.
Okay.
Okay, we don't have any board committees at this time, so we'll move on. Item 6 is director comments on items not on the agenda.
I have a few.
Director Coleman.
Okay. Kind of companies go out of business. They declare bankruptcy. Mojave Airport suffered losses. The airports had losses. And the airport's going to run out of money too. So I've got my concern. Yeah, we got a good budget, but the last couple of meetings, a few meetings ago, it was a $2 million plus water line replacement on Roper Street. Approved. Then the last meeting was $1 million plus taxiway alpha lights. And then I voted no on approving that money because there was only one bid. And I think a better way to approach that is get multiple bids because you can get a better price. And at the same time, I didn't know that it was a fixed amount of money that was coming in for the thing. So was there any quote for, okay, the electrical lines between the lights were the problem, the resistance or whatever? Why not just replace the wiring and leave the lights as they are? And that would be much cheaper. And they're saying, oh, there's a big backlog and everything like that. So I think if you were to say, okay, the problem is the wiring between the lights, let's replace the wiring. And if the lights burn out, you replace the bulb. It's kind of like I put a similar thing, and all these lights in here, they work. When they burn out, you replace them. So that, to me, is a better budgetal way of approaching something like that. And go ahead.
Yeah, Floyd and I discussed that idea because I'm in the same boat as you. It seems like on the surface that would make sense, but when you have to pop open each can and replace and pull the wiring, in the long run, you're still spending an awful lot of money doing that project. There's not really a cost savings. It makes sense to replace the lights.
I feel there's a cost savings though.
Well, it depends on I think it depends too on whether it was put in with galvanized piping back in the day when it was put in originally, which is probably rotten today.
I'm talking about the wiring. I'm not.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right. Okay.
It's all it's all underground.
Okay.
And if it was put in steel at that time, chances are that you're not going to be able to pull the wire through the old existing steel conduit because it's probably rotten.
The lights have not failed; they've remained working. Now, if we were to replace all the lights on the field as that's a better way to go, and we replace all the water lines on the airport, our budget would be wiped out. So I think we ought to approach each task that's $1 million, $2 million. I mean, $10 million goes away really quick if every other meeting we have that type of expense. And what I tend to call things in that category as nice to haves. It's nice to have a lighting system that's brand new and LED and whatever the latest it is, but we've been able to get by with these light systems for many years, the way they function. So what I'm saying is that's a nice to have thing, and and then let's put building new hangars. That's a nice to have thing too, but I think as people know, a main reason I wanted to strive to be a board of director is to build new hangars. And as I was transitioning in, they were tearing down 14 hangars. And at that time, I was saying, you don't need to tear them down. You can remove them and put them some more suitable place on the airport. And that was denied, and they were all torn down. And I got a bunch of pictures of it when they had the bulldozers in trashing those hangars. And now it's, wow, this is expensive building hangars. We could have saved millions of dollars there I would have approved a plan to say, okay, let's take them down, relocate them somewhere else. That would cost way less than building new hangars. So what I'm trying to do is save money for the airport, because if we have a $10 million budget supply and all these other tenants we lose, they go away, and then, wow, we don't have much budget left. But $2 million, $1 million, I think it should be approached in a better way. And I don't agree that just replacing the wire it'd be more expensive to replace the bulbs every time they burn out, type of thing. But there's lots of opinions on that. Every week I read in news articles about, wow, a new hangar development at this airport. They're all over the country. And I've flown to hundreds of airports, and now Diane's got her hundreds other airports to go to. And they all seem to have hangar projects. we don't have any, and we'll see how this new hangar development works out. But a lot of these hangars are being built by grants. There's a lot of grant money out there that can be pursued, millions of dollars of grant money, and the grant money, because that's like resurfacing our runway. We get 90% of that. That's great. There's also that money for the hangars and then taxiways that are still unsuitable for tailwheel airplane at this time, even though here we are 3 years later and there's still cruddy taxiways. And if we're trying to attract new tenants and new businesses and everything like that, wow, look at, they're building hangars. We want one of those hangars. And that's kind of what I've been saying over and over again. So maybe I sound repeating myself, but it's kind of, I wanted my opinion to be viewed and disagreed with or agreed with. But I think it's important for the future of the airport that we build new hangars. And all the other airports, you can go to Diane, Bob, everybody that's been at other airports, and they go, wow, they are building hangars everywhere else. So wonder why Mojave isn't doing that. But we'll see how the private goes. That's the basics of my...
Actually, Chuck, I'd love to hear more about what research you have on the grants that people have gotten for hangars. Like, are they FAA? Are they state level in other states? State at this state? You know,
state level, federal level.
Because I know
all sorts of things.
Yeah, I trust that that the airports work very hard to look into that. But if you've got some detail on like when grants or how grants have been invested for general aviation hangars,
I forward a lot of that stuff to the management of the airport, and
I'd love to hear about.
Sometimes they don't respond, and sometimes they do.
Well, could you put me on the list?
Well, I kind of gave up on doing that because I wasn't appreciated, it seems. But it's the way all the other airports I go to, maybe a couple are doing it, but they're all building hangars. And here I am 3 years and I haven't made any progress. I made that presentation about the Vacaville hangars they're building, and go ahead and laugh about it.
No, I just was thinking there was a little something wrong with the general manager's presentation.
I have the same thoughts, but usually at least half the labor in replacing a light fixture, half the cost in replacing a light fixture is a labor in most construction projects. So if you have to take the light fixture off, pull the wires, and reconnect them to either the old fixture or the new fixture, now's the time to do it. And they obviously considered that. So it is more money, but in the long run, we'll spend less. And the money was available now for the wiring, just not for that and the fixture. So it didn't cover all our costs this time like we would have liked. So that's why I voted yes reluctantly, because I was also concerned about the cost overrun. But, I think inflation and COVID has had a lot to do with that.
I put that in the nice to have category.
And I agree with you about the single bid thing. That was a concern, but I believe that we solicited multiple bids and we only got one return.
We should do better than a single bid, because someone knows that, I might be the only bidder, and all of a sudden they say, let me try this. Right. But
any other comments? Maybe on Chuck's?
I know that the bids in the past year sometimes are an issue. You only get one bid. I think Scott can probably attest to that, because we like that. Obviously, he's smart with our money. But and I know that system has failed many times over the years.
We're in good financial conditions, but if we have a $1.2 million expense every other meeting, we're going to run out of money quickly.
Yeah, unexpected, exceeding planned. It's a valid concern.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Any other director comments not on the agenda? Okay. At this time, we'll go into closed session. We've got 4 items to address. And those in the public that wish to remain, there'll be a closed session report. And we've got 1 action item at the end for Cambium Inc. building lease.
Aaron, thank you for attending.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you.
Travis, you too.
Okay.
Tell Grandma prayers.